with a Memphis market update for the week of April 11th through April 17th. I will be going over, I'll give a brief snapshot of Shelby County as a whole and a few zip codes throughout the city. So let's get right into it. For Shelby County overall, we saw 160 active listings. The low end was $12,000. The high end was $1.25 million. 222 properties sold in Shelby County last week. The low was $13,000. The high was $950,000. The average days on market was 26 with a median days on market of 7. Moving on to Arlington. In Arlington, we saw 4 active listings last week. The low was $475,000. The high was $1,065,000. 17 properties sold in Arlington last week. The low was $225,000. The high was $625,000. The average days on market in Arlington is 17 days with the median days on market of 4. Moving on to Bartlett. In Bartlett, we saw 4 active listings last week. The low was $139,900. The high was $269,500. 21 properties sold in Bartlett last week. $92,900 on the low and $450,000 on the high end. 36 is the average days on market in Bartlett for last week with the median days of 22. Moving on to Collierville, there were 17 active listings in Collierville. The low was $329,900. The high was $1,225,000. 19 properties sold in Collierville last week. The low was $275,000 and the high was $795,000. The average days on market was 39 with the median days on market being 8. Moving on to Cordova. In Cordova, there were 11 active listings last week. 189.9 was the low. On the high was 415,000. 27 properties sold in Cordova last week. The low was 107,000 and the high was 550,000. The average days on market was 22 with the median days on market being 20. Moving on to East Memphis, looking at zip codes 38117, 38119, and 38120. There were 13 active listings in East Memphis last week. The low, $169,995. The high end, $1,149,000. 30 properties sold in East Memphis last week. The low was $154,000 and the high was $915,000. 18 days on market is the average with 3 days being the median. Moving on to Germantown. Germantown, there were 13 active listings last week. $379,900 on the low and $865,000 on the high end. 10 properties sold in Germantown last week. The low was $115,000 and the high was $950,000. The average days on market was 9 days with the median days on market of 4. Moving to Harbortown, there were 6 active listings in Harbortown last week. The low was $133,000. The high was $595,000. 7 properties sold in Harbortown last week, $150,000 on the low end and $390,000 on the high. 33 is the average days on market with 20 days being the median days on market. In Midtown, there were 7 active listings in Midtown, $220,000 on the low end, on the high, $850,000. 5 properties sold in Midtown last week. The low was $199,000, the high end $260,000. 31 is the average days on market in Midtown, with 14 being the median days on market. In Southeast Memphis, looking at zip code 38141 and 38125. Two properties sold in Southeast Memphis last week. Excuse me, there were two active listings in Southeast Memphis last week. 128,900. The high was 367,500. 10 properties sold in Southeast Memphis last week. The low was 130,000 and the high was 523,000. 45 is the average days on market in Southeast Memphis, with the median days on market being 16. Now, when I say the active listings, how many properties were actually available, I did not include the properties that were contingent, which mean they had either inspection contingencies, things like that. So those numbers are not included in the numbers, just the properties that were available last week for sale with no contingencies or pending sales. But overall, in the Memphis market, we are still seeing in some areas where the sale price is, the homes are being sold above list price, with the average about 2% above list price. So if you're considering selling in this time, this may be a good time for you, because again, we're seeing an increase of sale price over list price. And looking at the Freddie Mac interest rates that we saw nationwide last week, a 30-year fixed was 3.0%, a 15-year fixed was 2.35%, and then a 5-year adjustable was 2.8%. It's slightly lower than it was last week, the previous week, but again, interest rates are still fairly low, so we're still going to see buyers being qualified because interest rates are still relatively low. If there are any areas that you would like covered, if there's any information that I missed, feel free to leave a comment and I can get clarity on anything that I mentioned here today. Otherwise, have a fabulous day and I'll talk to you later. Have a great week.